Thank you, Ben. If you can order something in Sasquatch, then I might be getting that and everything. Lastly, I do want to thank Central Tech for they're not necessarily the direct sponsor and everything here today, but all the support that they do with the Development Authority and everything there is very, very, very helpful for us. So shout out to them as well. So lastly, I want to introduce our panel and then let Angie run the show from there. So we've got Dr. Joe Richardson, the Executive Director of the Middle Georgia Innovation Corridor, Mr. Paul Allen, Business Development Project Manager of the Development Authority of Houston County. We've got Candace Scott, who's the Regional Project Manager of Georgia Department of Economic Development, and then moderated by our very own Ms. Angela Easley, the Executive Director of our Houston County Development Authority. Please welcome them to the stage.
Good morning. How about this stage setup? I mean, let's use that outfitter setup. Phillips Furniture today has provided the setting up here, and I think it's kind of cool to get here now for every program and see what the stage looks like. So, really loving this look. Thank you, April. My aim is to not disappoint. It's hard to sit here and be you, but glad for the opportunity. So we're talking about regional trends today, and I think a lot of you that have heard me speak say, well, Angie, you usually are talking about the region. And that's how I came into the business of economic development, and so it's just kind of stayed with me. But I want to talk for a minute about our own community in Houston County, and I would be remiss if I didn't talk about, the many partners that are here, and honestly, they're all of you. You're all our partners, everyone in the room. But special recognition to my board. Chairman's here, Neil Talton, Vice Chairman Marion Fraley, our Secretary Treasurer Chris Davis, former Chairman Ben Holbert, and former executive member Scott Cox. So I want to thank y'all because you do support my work in the region, and you understand why it's important that we do work. We're going to swap your mic. Okay. Okay, better. All right. And they understand the importance of working throughout the 11 county area here. My team, lean and mean team, got Paul that you'll hear from today, and a lot of people think, well, Angie's kind of the forward face development authority, but the driving force is sitting right there at that table, and that's Amelia Spinks. So special thanks. She's my secret weapon. She's my R-League, if that makes sense to everybody in the room. So we're going to jump in and go ahead and get started with my friends and my partners over here. So we're going to start with you, Candace. So Candace has worked in this 11 county region that I mentioned for how many years?
18 years.
How about that? 18 years. So the program started as a regional effort some 25 years ago. So she's intimately familiar, as you can tell, with the 11 counties here. So when you are with your counterparts, because the regions, of course, are all over the state, there's 12, and you're talking to them, what are the things that you talk about that make you most proud to report about our region? And then what things do you hear that you wish we could implement, possibly, if there's anything in our region?
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I would say the thing that I'm most proud about, and I speak about it all the time, all throughout the state, I don't care where I'm at or who I'm in front of, is the collaboration right in Middle Georgia. I know that you guys, again, Angie talks about it all the time, and so to you, that's just something we do. It's just part of who we are in Middle Georgia. But it is not like that all around the state. I've worked other areas of the state in and out of my 18 years with the department, and it is unique you have all different aspects of the community coming to the table to really prop up the Middle Georgia area to be strong for economic development. That is our education leaders, that's our civic leaders, that's also all of our government entities. We're all working in one direction, and I'm very grateful. And you know, it is talked about around the state too that we generally like each other in Middle Georgia. And I'm telling you, it is not like that. So that, to me, that is one of the things that I am most proud of. And it is not easy, and it is something that is not natural, and you have to work towards. So that is one thing. I would say, although it is very hard to find something that we could do better at in Middle Georgia, but I would say what I've heard is mobility and getting our workers to work a little bit easier. We don't really have a big mobility system set up. Obviously, we know Atlanta, they have several different keys when it comes to their infrastructure and getting people to work. So when I meet with companies across Middle Georgia, that is one of their concerns, is really trying to get their people to work. So I would love the Middle Georgia region to start having those conversations and be innovative in what that could possibly look like.
So, of course, what we're accustomed to working with in the region are the Middle Georgia Economic Alliance, and it's the 11 economic developers that are found throughout the one point of contact for your department. And we've been doing that for 25 years, y'all. And you're right, we like each other. And more importantly, we trust each other. And so when the regional program started, you know, we pulled together these things we call RACs. I don't know if there's anybody in the room that would remember that, but it's a Regional Advisory Council. And our very own former chairman, Cheryl Stafford, chaired that for the region, and he was the right person. And it's great when you're talking about ways that everybody can agree that we needed to be working together, but I always knew the real test would come when there was money that needed to be put in, particularly money that might just really be perceived to be benefiting one community and not others. And then when the occasion rose and the request from the Air Force with the encroachment area, you hear about the three counties, Peach and Houston and Macon-Bibb, that came together with the state of Georgia to make this investment and purchase these properties. But what a lot of people don't realize, it took the 11 county joint development authority to agree that this was the thing to do. And so that's a really good example. I always wondered what would happen, you know, when money came into play, and it's really been rewarding for all of us to see. So we're talking regionally, but you know I'm going to have to ask you what you think about Houston County. And I'd love to know what stands out for you and what we do, but we've got a thick skin here, you know that. So I want you to tell us if there are things we ought to work on as well.
Okay. Just to kind of give you guys a little insider knowledge, I actually live in Houston County.
Home. Yeah, that's right.
It is my home. So, but I would say on a state view of Houston County, we know that we can bring a project to Houston County and the Development Authority, and they are going to work it. And what I mean by that is that they are going to be prepared. They are going to, most of the time, Angie anticipates any question that a prospect is going to have, and her staff are ready to come with answers. If they're not, they usually have the industry expert on hand to answer that. It takes a lot of heavy lifting to get a project from A all the way to Z. If anyone who's been involved with Jack Links in this room and all the heavy lifting that everyone in this community has done, that is very difficult to do and to be successful. You want that industry when they land here to be able to meet with other prospects around the state and tell them that what a good job and what their experiences was. So we know that we can bring a project to Houston County, it's gonna get worked, and you guys are gonna shine, and you're gonna make the state look good. So we will never be embarrassed coming to Houston County. So that's one thing. I know no one here is surprised by that. You know, one of the things that I would suggest is to continue to work on your industrial sites throughout the county. I don't know if you guys know this, but COVID really made Georgia boom economically. Before COVID, we were obviously the #1 state to do business, but the rest of the country decided that they were gonna go on that bandwagon too. So we went through about 10 to 20 years of product, industrial sites, within just a few years. So the state is really, really in need of 50 to 100 acres industrial sites that are ready to go, because it's all about speed to business when it comes to landing a prospect. So I would say to continue to work on those industrial sites in Houston County, and also work on your leadership. I know that we are in a great place today here, but what is it going to look like in 20 and 30 years for those companies that we're selling as Houston County as the place to come? So I would say continue to work on that leadership pipeline, and so we can continue to be one of the best in the state.
So you talk about, you know, how many people in the ring by the time we get to the end of a project like a Jack Links it really takes to be successful. It's not just a couple of people, it's really all of us kind of pulling in one direction. And one thing that Candace, you know, would say that I certainly saw working statewide, and there are a lot of communities that do have what we call the product. They've got the land, they've got the water sewer capacity, but their leadership is failing and they're not supportive. And I must tell you, in all honesty, we were very fortunate here, and so great did I add gratitude back to our county and our 3 cities and our school system and everybody from colleges and universities that really pulled together in one direction. It's not just elected officials that you call leadership, it really spans across an entire community, so we're grateful for that. So Dr. Joe. So some people remember that Dr. Joe Richardson was on the Development Authority Board for many years. He left to take on his dream of going into higher education, went off to Orlando for a while, and fortunately his family stayed here, so he had to come back here. And had a little COVID disruption there, and so when he got back here, I was afraid that I didn't get to him quick enough, because everybody knows his talent, and he's a consultant to a lot of different folks. So I called him in, I said, I'm just really excited about this project, and at the time it was a Middle Georgia Innovation Project, and I said, I think about you anytime I think about somebody that I think could really lead this effort. And I said, I'd like for you just to read the reports, you know, and I just want to know what you think. And so he came back to me, and if y'all know Dr. Joe, he did read all the reports. And he came back and he said, you know, Angie, he said, I'd be disingenuous if I told you that I was not interested. He said, I did my dissertation at Mercer on this very subject. How cool is that? I mean, so I knew I had him then. So I was like, well, come in and try this out for a while and partner with me, and let's work through this. So a lot of people know about the Innovation Corridor, but if you will, just take a minute and talk about kind of how it came to be, and then how that has become, and it's important to us that it remain a regional effort.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Y'all hear me okay? Okay, fantastic. So I'm delighted to be here, and certainly delighted to partner with you, Angie, and the rest of the team as well. So I'm going to answer that question in the context of a conversation I had yesterday with my financial advisor. So my financial advisor calls me up, and she's like, hey, Joe, you know, I'm going to move some money into the NASDAQ here, and I'm going to move some money into bonds and international. So what she's really doing is she's diversifying my financial portfolio. So what's the advantage of that? The advantage of that is that she's planning for the long-term viability and success of my financial portfolio to not only last throughout my lifetime, but my family as well. And so when we talk about the origins of the Innovation Corridor, it actually is that same philosophy. We all love Robins Air Force Base and the contribution that aerospace and national defense makes to our community. We heard at the State of the Base just a few days ago the $4.2 billion economic impact, and that's huge. But one of the things that the responsible leaders of this community thought about several years ago is that what happens if the missions at the base are no longer here? How do we diversify what we do from an economic level to be able to sustain Middle Georgia and beyond? And so we started off just getting a group of stakeholders together. And Angie, I know you may want to share the credit for this, but I remember you as being the convener of this group of stakeholders, and these are interested parties, and a lot of you are in the room here today. And we said, hey, is there really anything beyond the base? Because we know the base is awesome. Is there anything beyond the base that we can actually build an economy, an ecosystem around? And we love, Middle Georgia, and so sometimes you can see value in something, but it just may be sentimental value. Like for instance, how many of you were actually born by showing your hands, were actually born in Middle Georgia? Okay, hands down. How many of you came here as a result of like a military assignment or a job? So we all have our different reasons for why we're here and why we value living in Middle Georgia. But we actually brought in an outside consultant to see if there was any real value above and beyond the value that we attributed to the place. And lo and behold, and this first phase was actually funded by the Department of Defense, and lo and behold, they agreed with us. And so we moved into the second phase of this, and the first phase is what we call a charrette. It was a Middle Georgia charrette. Future IQ was the consultant that we brought in. And so we moved from that to the second phase to identify, well, what is it really of value that's in this area that we can rally around in addition to the anchor of the base? What else is there that we can rally around to build our economy around? And that went into that second phase that Angie just mentioned. That was the Middle Georgia Innovation Project. And in that, we started identifying different things like aerospace, national defense, manufacturing, warehouse and logistics, healthcare, the world-class educational systems that we have, precision agriculture, the importance of agriculture, the livability, real estate, the cost of living. All of these things were legitimate things that we can actually build and sustain an economy around. And like Angie mentioned, during that second phase, that's when I was gallivanting around Central Florida as a college vice president. And also it was during the pandemic. And so coming out of the pandemic, in order to maintain the momentum of the Middle Georgia Innovation Project, Georgia Tech applied for and received a $65 million grant from the Economic Development Administration of America as part of the Build Back Better program. And that grant was focused on artificial intelligence in manufacturing. So it's called the Georgia AIM grant, and that's what AIM stands for. And so that $65 million grant was supposed to be used to help advance artificial intelligence in advanced manufacturing throughout the state. What Georgia Tech did is they took that grant and initially divided it into 8 different projects. Eventually, the funding for that initiative went over $100 million, and I think there's somewhere around 17 different projects that are actually operational through those funds. And the Middle Georgia Innovation Corridor is one of those projects that was identified to receive funding for that. And so what we do is we focus on those core areas that we have to build an economy around. And oh, by the way, the proximity to I-75, Interstate 16, the Port of Savannah, and the Atlanta airport certainly doesn't hurt us. And we focus on promoting this region so that it can become that magnet that creates additional industry moving into the area. And once we do that, and we can shore up the economy for the long term, because it's diversified now, we can promote livability in the area and continue to bring people into the area as well. So that's just a little bit of background on the history of how the corridor came to be.
So as you've been a part of this project, what initiatives have you seen starting, or maybe some trends you've seen that are occurring that we think may be attributed to this momentum that we're gaining through the corridor effort?
So the first thing I want to just make really, really clear is everybody that's under the sound of my voice is really a part of this corridor and the effort. So the projects that I'm going to describe, all of you take credit for it, all right? Because it is you and this teamwork that we have here, this collaboration that we have brought these things to pass. And so I like to consider the Middle Georgia Innovation Corridor as this huge magnet. Well, a magnet doesn't work unless it's attracting something. So what is it that we're attracting? And I want you to think about just some of the recent developments in this area, and hopefully you'll just get excited, as excited about it as I am. Think about the fact that Emory Healthcare is merging with Houston Healthcare and moving into Warner Robins. Think about that. Oh yes, absolutely. The magnet that you all created is working. Think about the fact that the Air Force Sustainment Center, their software directorate, the Air Force-wide directorate, was just announced a few days ago. Guess where it's going to be located? Right here. There's another, yes, oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's another project, which I can't speak, we were talking earlier about the secrecy of some of the things, but there's another project I can tell you right now that me, Chairman Perdue, General Kubinick, had a conversation with that could potentially bring another Air Force-wide Center of Excellence right here into the Warner Robins area. So the magnet is working. I think about things like the Macon Innovation District. So right now, Macon, a few months ago, they pulled together this steering committee, and Angie and I were members of this steering committee. And what they're looking to do is to build a healthcare and a medical center of excellence, an innovation district, right here in the state of in Middle Georgia, in the city of Macon. So that is gaining momentum. And then, of course, one of the latest developments that we've seen is the entire Grand Farm Initiative. That's a collaboration with the University of Georgia. And on May the 1st, they're actually going to be having a conference that's going to talk about the importance of precision agriculture as it relates to supporting our farmers. And then the very next day, they're going to have a groundbreaking for the Grand Farms Initiative out in Perry. And so the magnet is working. These are all just different examples of the power of this corridor to attract innovation, technology, to attract businesses into the area to help shore up our economy.
So with that, we've even seen a program on the Georgia AIM initiative, and we were a little concerned when we went into that second phase with Future IQ on the innovation project because we were in COVID. And we had such great participation, and it actually worked in our favor because we had to up our Zoom membership to get all the people on a call. There were so many people interested. Future IQ has tentacles all over the world, but they worked with a lot of defense communities. Those folks were on the call. But we really caught the attention of Georgia Tech from several different divisions of Georgia Tech as they participated on these calls. And because of that, the Georgia AIM opportunity came about. But in that, our partners and the great work that they do, particularly with the 21st Century Partnership and funding that went there to support the Middle Georgia STEM Alliance, and then to look to the money that came to Fort Valley State for these mobile units so that we can move STEM out into particularly the rural areas and provide exposure to those school systems and others that don't have access to that. And there's, precision agriculture also is another mobile unit. So we've just been really fortunate in the way things have come about. And then you've got Central Georgia Tech on their own who received attention through the Georgia AIM initiative, and we have the robotics lab now at Vector that's focused on AI. So many good things keep coming. And we talk about the diversification away from dependence on Robins Air Force Base, but what happens? We always come right back to it. So thank you over there for everything that you do. And particularly the willingness to come outside the fence and share with us and allow us to help you. That does not happen at every installation, and we're very, very fortunate. But the reason we talked about the diversification is the funding, the unique funding we were receiving from the Department of Defense to start this process was about helping communities so that they aren't devastated should a BRAC come along or should you lose some important missions. So it was nice when we were finally able to kind of go through that exercise, but then show, hey, we're a software center of excellence here, right, Mike? We're a software center of excellence. And we're now a center of excellence for robotics. And so the magnet is there, and then everybody rallies around it with our industries and our universities and our school systems. So finally, we're going to transition over to Paul. And as I mentioned, Paul's come on board. He has an extensive background working on workforce initiatives. Fortunately, when he started, he worked in the entire region with all the 11 counties, so he's intimately familiar, and we just feel very grateful that he's now working with us. But by the way, he does continue to help out our other counties, and we're glad that we're able to do that. So can you share with us a brief overview of what the ACT Work Keys program involves?
Absolutely. Pleasant good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
The ACT Work Keys is a strategic way to match talent with opportunity. As he mentioned, we're going to have a magnet, right? And so if you do things right, you're going to need workforce. And so this is a way to strategically align our workforce with opportunities that are being presented. And so for employers, it is a way to verify that our workforce has a skill set that they're looking for. For job seekers, it's a way for them to validate, hey, I have the skills that you're looking for in these in-demand areas. And then for economic development, it signals to industry that we have a focused effort to make sure that we have a highly skilled, ready workforce to meet the needs so employers can thrive. And so the goal is to make Middle Georgia a certified work-ready community.
So,
If I could just add just something real quick in the importance of what Paul just said, because it doesn't do us a whole lot of good for this magnet to attract industry. And then in order to find employees, they have to take from an industry that's already here. So you rob Peter to pay Paul. What we really need is to increase the retention of people in the area and the inflow of people into the area so that both of those industries can reach their full potential, because there's enough human capital for them to be able to employ in order for both of them to grow. So that's why what he just said is really so important, because what he does and what the economic developers do, there's synergy. The synergy has to be there in order for the organizations to maximize their potential.
thank you, Joe. So when we talk about certified work ready and a certified work ready community, if that rings a bell to any of you in the room, and Candace was involved, I was involved, Andrea Griner, I know she's here. She led this county to certification, and that was probably 2010 or so, maybe. And if you ride across our state, almost every community has a Georgia Work Ready green sign at the county line. Those have not, for the most part, been taken down. And so what we had talked about was that was really such a successful program. This was started by our very own chancellor now, governor at the time, Sonny Perdue. And over time it kind of waned, mainly because there was not funding that was put in to cover some of the costs that go along with it. But as a region, we looked at it again. Many of us had worked on it. We knew it was successful when it was initiated. And so we decided, let's go back and look at something that's tried and true. And when we brought the ACT folks in, we found out, well, guess what? The rest of the country's doing this. Something started in Georgia really works. We got to get back on the bandwagon again. So talk, Paul, about why having this certification is important for our community, and how does it provide and speak to businesses that are looking to locate and even to expand out their operations.
And certainly, so it's a reflection of a healthy economic ecosystem, really, showing that our workforce partners, our education partners, our employers, and our economic developers are all working together to make sure we have a highly skilled workforce. And so I think there's three ways that it gives us a competitive advantage. Number one, it reassures employers. I've met with a lot of employers, they say, you know, just because a person has a diploma, a degree, or some type of certification does not always translate to them being able to do what I need them to do in my industry. And so this gives them that reassurance that the people that we're referring to them, these potential candidates, already have certified skills that are verified and validated. Also what it does is it streamlines the hiring process, right? You're gonna reduce turnover, you're gonna cut improve retention, and you're gonna save money on retraining people who don't have what you need to hit the ground running. And then lastly, I'd say it strengthens the pipeline from school to career, right? By bringing our education partners to the table, it creates an environment where that dialogue can happen in an organized way around work keys, right? Where we look at work readiness with a magnifying glass and find out where are the skill gaps and how can we improve them.
So we decided, this part I left out, as a region, that if we were going to bring this program back in a big way, that we needed to all 11 agree that it was important to us, because over half of our workforce in this county alone comes from outside of this county. So you can see where it's important that we're all on the same page. All our industries know how to recognize this certification. So we've talked about it kind of at a high level, but we have businesses in the room and other entities, everybody hires in here, right? So tell them how they can get involved in this process and how it works.
Absolutely. So the approach that we like to take is to do what's called a job profile. So I'll become an ACT licensed job profiler. So I will come into your business and you'll identify the hard to fill roles. And then if you'll allow us to do a job profile, we'll spend time with the subject matter experts in those roles and find out exactly what are all the tasks that they are asked to complete in their role. And then what are the associated skills that you need to have in order to complete those tasks. And after we give you the report, it will show you, okay, you're looking for a person who scores this score on graphic literacy, this score in applied mathematics, and this score in workplace documents. And then on the test taker side, the job seeker side, or the student, when they take the exam, they earn a nationally recognized career readiness certificate. And it's various levels. It's kind of like the Olympics. You get a bronze, a silver, a gold, and then a platinum. And so depending on where they score, that will let you know that they're qualified for particular roles. So now when you're looking to match candidates, you can just reach out to us and say, hey, I need someone with this score for this role. And we have a pool of test takers who've already accomplished that. And it kind of cuts out on everything. And so the more detail about it is that we have certain goals that were established. When we got our local leaders and civic leaders to come together and say, okay, we're committed to making Middle Georgia a certified work-ready community, we set goals for our region. How many test takers and how many employers we're going to support the initiative. And so what we really need from you all is your support as far as that. And on your desk, you should see a ACT QR code. And what that QR code does is link you to the website where you can show your support. Now there's different levels of support. The first level is just saying that you recommend ACT Work Keys and saying that you heard what we said today and you believe it's a viable product. The higher level is that you recognize it. That means that you're actually going to make it part of your hiring process, which many agencies and employers in our region have already done. So that's the ask, is for that. And then the last part of our process is obviously to track the progress, to check in and see how everything's going.
So that process, like Paul said, so don't be intimidated by it when you go online. It's really just simply saying that you heard and you trust us and you know it's a great program to be involved in. But also take a look, because it's going to ask you, like, I don't know if they word it like county representation. There's something on there where you're going to check the county. Check the counties that you hire from, okay? Not just the one for Houston County where you have a business. Check all of them, because back to working as a region, we want to certify the entire region, and we all have different goals, and that's a number we're going to have to reach. Really surprised and really relieved when we went through our training process to learn that the test number of people taking the test and getting the certification, the numbers were higher. And thankfully that's because of Central Georgia Technical College, because they continue to offer this and saw value in this. And then as we've met with our industry across the region, we've learned that a lot of them are still using the profile, using it as a means to hire. We've got one company that you can't get an interview unless you come in with your certification, and some using it to promote people from within. So Paul, talk about maybe a good story that we've heard kind of along the way, and a best practice and how it's worked for one of our companies.
Okay. Okay, so that was an example of one there. I have a story that's a little bit off the cuff. So we were in our training at Central Georgia Tech. We had all 11 executive directors of the different counties that we serve. And then we did a 3-day grueling training on ACT work keys and how this whole process works. So at the end of the training, we're walking out of the training, and I'm walking out kind of first, and I get this big bear hug. Someone just lifts me up. And you see, I'm not a small guy. And so I'm like, what did I do? And so I look back, and I'm feeling a little nervous, and all of the other economic developers, they're looking at me like, who's this? And I turn around, and it's a kid. He has on a do-rag and a baseball cap, and he's just grinning from ear to ear. He says, "Coach, it's me. Do you remember me?" I say, "Put me down, please." Before we get to that part. And he said, "No, I was in your class, in economics class, and you always encouraged me. I was a knucklehead in high school. I spent a few years bouncing around to dead-end jobs, and then I decided to come enroll in CGTC's program for industrial maintenance. And my ACT scores, I don't know if you remember, Coach, but you drove me to Mercer, and you paid for me to take my ACT, and that is what got me in the door." And 2 years later, I'm proud to say that he's now working in that capacity, making a livable wage. And when he finished school, he had a hard time finding a job. So he's done everything he was supposed to do. He came back to me and said, "Coach, I did what you said. I got my degree, I got an associate's, and I still can't find a job." And I said, "Well, take this ACT work keys, because I know the young man is highly intelligent." And he blew it out of the water, platinum, silver across the board. And within 2 weeks of that, he was able to get a job.
So let's talk about the future. Look into your magic ball there and tell us, what are the key opportunities for growth in the coming decade, and how is the region positioning itself to adapt to future economic trends or challenges?
I would say, and these two gentlemen have already talked about it, especially Joe, is automation and AI integration in every single industry. Just this week, we met with a company, local, and they're spending millions and millions of dollars just on automation alone for the future of their industry. I would say we need to continue to support these companies and what they're doing. Have the conversations with existing industries. Listen to what their future is going to look like in that industry. Because they already know. They know what it's going to look like in about 5 to 10 years. And they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on creating automation and AI opportunities within these plants. We used to work projects where there would be hundreds of jobs and maybe about $25 million of investment. Now it's completely flipped, and we're looking at $100 to $200 million projects, and there may be 5 new jobs. So it's important that we continue to support the education system, support things like the corridor and everything that is bringing about, because it is all about automation and AI in the future. I know Houston County is doing a great job of doing that. The robotics team alone in our high schools, now that it's really growing and becoming popular and making a name for us in Middle Georgia, so thank you for that. But we need to continue down that path and start young. Start as young as we can in the school systems. I would love to say that everyone in Middle Georgia is doing a great job of anticipating this AI automation that's coming up. That is not the truth, to be honest with you. Some communities are doing it a lot better. But the important thing is at least those conversations are starting, even in the rural areas of the region. So,
And if I could just thank you for that. I'm excited that was your answer. One of the neat things that we've been doing within the corridor, and Angie, you remember this because a few weeks ago, Angie and I actually attended an AI conference that was put on in Macon. And it was hosted by Wesleyan University, and then the second day was actually at the Tubman Museum there in Macon. And I had the opportunity to be able to serve on 2 different panels during that conference or during that event. And so a couple of cool things happened. The second panel And some folks from Atlanta that represented Microsoft were on the panel with me. So it was me and the Microsoft folks. And so on the second panel, unbeknownst to us, we didn't realize that it was set up so that about 80% of the audience were high school students. And we actually changed the flow of that panel from the moderator. There was an individual from the Macon Chamber that was moderating that panel, and we worked with them to change the flow from them asking us questions to the students being able to ask us questions, and for us to be able to give them information that directly related to what it is that they wanted to do. I also want to give another shout out to, I know Perry just had their startup week a few weeks ago, and part of that, they had a lunch and learn where they integrated a subject matter expert on AI for small business success into that. A few weeks later, they launched their speaker series, and that speaker series was an actual AI subject matter expert that actually interfaced with the community and showed the community, hey, how do you go from actually utilizing AI and partnering with AI to make your life better? To make your life better. And so we were excited for that. And then even as we're planning for the Warner Robins Startup Week, I've already met with Kate, and Michael Collins and I are actually going to be on a panel to once again talk about the importance of AI as it relates to helping small business success. And so I'm glad that you said that, and I'm doubly glad that we're in the process of making strides in the direction of your recommendation.
Yeah, part of what we were going to talk about is the importance of entrepreneurship, and obviously we won't get to that, but back to a shout out to Holly and Alicia and Kate in building out these Startup Week programs. And we were able to bring in our high school students during the pitch workshop. They're participating in a program called Flex. So we have one student now that's going forward to state, Izzy Peak. She actually works with the marketing and communications folks at the Board of Education. And next week she'll be competing in the state competition. So thank you. I see you, Dr. Sherry Johnson, over there, even though you might want to hide from me sometimes. And we have wanted to do Flex. It's a statewide program now. It started in Fitzgerald for years, and Sherry said, let's just do it. Let's do it this year. And we kept it kind of small, but the 4 students that we ended up with were absolutely perfect. And so we thank you also for being supportive of Certified Work Ready, and you and Tom Seward, and saying, yes, we'll find a way to help and get our students tested in the CTAE program. So we're really grateful. So while we're talking about those kind of partners, particularly our workforce partners, if y'all noticed, and if you're jealous because they have gift bags on their table, we've got our workforce partners here with us today. So I want you to talk about the importance and the really heavy lift that this can be, just building a great workforce network, and how good ours is here in Houston.
Absolutely. So big thank you to our workforce partners at the table. If you guys can just wave your hands, give them some love. So one of the things that Angie has taught me and has really promoted in our region is collaboration and partnership. And no one can do it alone in a silo. And so when Jack Links, for example, came to town and said they need over 500 employees, we said, okay, that's a heavy lift, right? And we wanted to do a job fair, a career fair, and have it well organized to show that, just like we told them in their visits, that this workforce is ready to meet your needs. And so I'm proud to say we had 16 workforce partners volunteer their time after hours and on a Saturday to make sure that this event went over without a hitch. And so we had people from the Technical College System of Georgia, we had representatives from the Department of Labor, from WorkSource Middle Georgia. I see our director, Mr. Darrell Stillings. Thank you for being here, sir. And also from Central Georgia Technical College and the Development Authority. And so together, we just put on this event, and it just showed the synergy that we've been building for years. And so for me, that's a great demonstration of the regional approach, that all these agencies, we've even formed a Region 6 business services team that has a member of each of those entities where we meet monthly to share insights, to strategically plan, and to share resources and give feedback to one another so that we have a unified front when we're going out to approach industry. And so I can't talk enough about how well that's going, and the economic developers from the region, helping them with ACT work keys, and just the partnership is really authentic here in Middle Georgia.
Yes, collaboration. And if y'all can imagine, and there's a video online that CGTC put out there about what this job fair looked like and how far down the road these people were lined up. And we were with the plant manager for Jack Links a couple of weeks before, and he was feeling kind of overwhelmed going through online applications. And 3 weeks before the job fair, there were 6,000 applicants online. 1 week before the job fair, there were 8,000 applicants online. So in these 2 days, we have a pretty exact number because Paul had the foresight to get people to register. So there were over 17, close to 1,800 people that we were able to work through in a short period of time. And overall, it went well, but it went well because of this group and because they like you, obviously, so much. I was like, there's no way. Jack Links wanted it after hours and then on a Saturday, and I said, I know that you're a great guy, but these people can't give up a Saturday and come help us out, and you did. And so I cannot thank you enough. And the company, most importantly, was pleased in the format, and actually the genius at the table over there, Amelia, between Thursday and Saturday came up with an even better system for us to receive those people. So Saturday was nice, right guys? Saturday was good. And we're a little overwhelmed on Thursday, but Saturday went great. So very, very appreciative for that support. And they brought, as you can imagine, I think there were 18 from Jack Links. Most of them flew in from their other locations around the country. So it was great to hear their reaction to the quality, most importantly, of the workforce and the people that they were talking to.
I want to share one other thing. So recently I got a call from my employer saying, you know, Paul, I need 10 people, but I want to use the ACT WorkKey system. I don't want to even interview them unless they have scores that I can look at. And so I reached out to Mr. Brandon Elam with Central Georgia Tech, our career services director there, and said, hey, can you kind of screen and look at some folks who meet these scores? And he said, I got you. Immediately went and pulled some candidates who meet that. And so it just shows how it's really strategic. You're not gonna waste time filtering through hundreds of applications to find someone who's ultimately not the right fit. So it's a way to really make sure we avoid mismatches.
Yeah, and this kind of support was something we put in our recruitment package. You have to find things that help you stand out a little bit from the rest, not just the cash part of it is great when communities and states put that forward, but a lot of it becomes very meaningful when you don't just have an announcement and then you're like, we're out of here, on to the next one, you know. So you have to continue to get that level of support. So I want to say, and also as a side note, this is available to everybody in the room. It's something that we pledged during this process of recruitment, but everybody can take advantage. So I think we should wrap up probably, yeah. And so I want to thank you in particular, my friends and our panel today for being here with us. And we can talk all that.